thank you everybody for coming. I know there's a lot of competition elsewhere, talks about gold and silver, but maybe if you're a contrarian, this is the right place to be. So as was mentioned, our topic is going to be the outlook for small cap uranium stocks. So we'll get into that, but I thought before we do that, we can set the stage. I'll ask both of you where we're at right now in the uranium cycle, and if this is the right time to be looking at those uranium juniors. So maybe Fabi, we start with you.
Sure. My thinking is that what's happened is we've already started the bull market in uranium, but we are in that much misunderstood period where we've had a run and a new base has been set. So it used to be that back in the day, you used to hear, $60 per pound is the target. That is what is going to be the price that producers are going to sell uranium to utilities and be able to make a decent amount to incentivize new production. That number has long come and gone in many ways, in that it's no longer 60. That's not going to bring any production back. It's not high enough, but also we've surpassed 60, and we went up to, I think, 105, 107, and then came crashing down as we were just about celebrating that we finally had a bull market back. And we've been bouncing along sideways, 70 to 80. Now we've broken out of the 80 range and into the 90s. So I think it's what you want to happen in a healthy bull market. It starts to rise, and then you get that interim fake bear market inside of a bull market. Some of the tourists leave the trade, but then because your base is so healthy and long, that the next leg up should be a lot more sustainable. At the end of the day, this is not just a financial bet, whether uranium is going to go up or down. Utilities need to buy more uranium going forward than they have in the last decade or so, which means the price must go up because they cannot put thorium in their plants and they cannot put plutonium in their plants. It's got to be uranium, so prices must rise.
Okay, great summary. And we'll put the same question to Nick. Where are we in the uranium cycle right now, and is it the right time to be looking at these uranium juniors?
I think it's still pretty early days, right? I wrote the numbers down so I could just tell you straight up. The world needs 185 to 200 million pounds a year of uranium, and the utilities have only been buying half that for the past 10 or 15 years, right? So they're burning a pound and they're replacing it with a half pound, and that's obviously unsustainable. They've been working through the stockpiles. We haven't really caught a huge uranium bid. Yeah, we had some fits and starts. Fabi just took you through those, but we haven't settled in a place that the price is going to incent enough supply to come online to feed what we need in this world for the next 20 or 30 years, right? Especially given all the announcements we've seen. It might feel like we've had a bull market, and yeah, the stocks have gone up, but it's really been a nuclear bull market, right? Like some of the stocks that have been driving that have been NuScale and Oklo and Nano, and then some of these, nuclear stocks that are in the ETFs that have uranium in the name. So it feels like uranium stocks have maybe gone up more than they have, right? So, the World Nuclear Association says we're going to need we're going to have a 70 million pound a year shortfall between now and 2040, right? A cumulative deficit of 1.1 billion pounds. And we just keep adding all these new things, right? Like we're obviously still building all the nuclear reactors. That has been the foundation of the bull case for the past 15 years. But now we're extending the lives of reactors, and we're going to add on small modular reactors, and we still want our power to be clean and green for all these data centers and things like that, right? So just in the U.S., right, which is where I'm based, we need some 50 million pounds a year, and we still only mine about a million pounds a year. So there's a huge deficit. I would argue that, it's still really early days in the uranium cycle, and that, everybody has said for a long time the utilities have to come back in, and that's still true, and they're going to have to because the stockpiles are wearing down now. So I think that's the recap.
Yeah, always good context, and I like the numbers to back it up as well, always helpful. So let's take a look at what you look at in uranium junior. You're always reminding me that you look at companies across the spectrum, so are there any special considerations?
No, I'm not a geologist, so I look at the asset and I look at the rocks and the reports, obviously, but I look for the same things, especially because this is a small cap panel, so I love that, right? Because I deal on the smaller end of the spectrum anyway, companies that are just getting started, IPOing new listings or bringing new projects to market. So for me, it's all about the same thing it's always about when I look at these things. You probably know what I'm going to say by now. It's about the share structure and it's the people, right? You need to make sure that this company, the share, the capital structure was structured in such a way that allows everybody to benefit, not just those who wrote the earliest checks, and hopefully not just those that wrote the cheap paper checks, right? That the founders, the founding principals put actual real money into the deal in a transparent way, right? So you want to be asking them, are you a registered insider, not just an insider, but like where are those shares? Are they in your name or do you have them in your baby mama's name? Like things like that, right? Or do you have them in some numbered company in BC that you can sell without the market knowing? You need to make sure that you have that solid foundation that allows them to raise capital at higher prices along the way so that everyone can benefit as it goes up. And then it's really a people game is what I've come to learn in the past 20 years is make sure you're investing with people that you like and that have done what you're trying to execute before and have had success doing that, right? So really vet the track record of the people and really vet the share structure of the company. And I think jurisdiction might be a little bit more important in uranium, but I know you're going to talk about that more in depth, so I'll leave that on the table for now.
Yeah, we will get to jurisdiction, and we'll go over to Fabi and get your approach as well to the uranium juniors. I know that often you're interested in the really small ones, the early stage ones, so how do you approach that?
So yeah, if somebody wants to get exposure to the uranium market and they want to not have to think about it, there are ETFs and there's Cameco. You would have done really well had you just bought that. I will give you that. I'll admit that just buying Cameco has worked really well. But I like the type of company where it is known that the uranium is there historically. It's been there. There's millions of pounds. They just need to bring it to a compliant state so that they can report on it. And so those tend to be companies that end up being smaller. The U.S. used to be the largest producer of uranium. They know where all the uranium is. These were past producers, not just deposits. And so you can, go down Utah, Wyoming, and Colorado, and there's lots of different places. Even Texas has a lot of uranium, and it's all laid out. The deposits are out there, but no company can legally say, hey, we have 20 million pounds, unless they go back there and drill as much as was drilled before. To me, that it's just too obvious, to know that something exists and to know that all it takes is just re-drill it to prove it up and to claim that it's there. To me, those smaller companies offer the biggest torque.
Okay, really good to go into that as well. And I'll let us go back over to the jurisdiction question. So I know you're paying attention to what's going on in the U.S., taking steps to secure uranium supply. You're tracking the Fast 41 companies that are getting that status. So what can you tell me about what you're seeing and how that's influencing your uranium approach?
Yeah, well, I stay out of Africa. It's easy enough for me just to come out and say that, right? Just as a jurisdiction, given the coups and the things that have gone on over there with the nationalizing or the stealing of assets, et cetera. So I just tend to stay away from that. The U.S. is on a fast track for a uranium bull market, right, with the Fast 41 permitting. So I guess maybe a story, right? I was involved in a project, I see Mr. Higgs here in the front row, called a Zarga that merged with URZ and, ended up getting taken out by Encore a number of years later. That project was in South Dakota called Dewey Burdock and became one of the first 10 projects that was selected under the Fast 41 permitting regime, right? So I think North America is hugely important. You obviously have the high grade in Saskatchewan, spend a lot of time looking at those projects, but the ISR in the United States is going to have to be where some of this future uranium comes from, whether that's in Texas or in Wyoming or South Dakota. I think that it's a cleaner way to do things, and I think that you can get those projects up and running faster with lower capital intensity. And so I spend a lot of time looking at projects that are ISR amenable and that can be brought on in a shorter timeline thanks to the new permitting regime that's in place.
Very, very good. And I'll ask you the same question. Do you have a preferred jurisdiction at the moment for uranium juniors? Are you also liking the U.S., or how are you seeing it?
I've been pounding the table on U.S. uranium for, I think, 4 to 5 years now. So people are sick of hearing, the whole buy small uranium companies in the U.S. specifically. This was before the whole Trump situation and critical minerals and that push, because we know where the uranium is, and because of what I just said about proving up the resources that we know to be there. The other thing too is that it makes no sense to me, like Nick brought up, for the U.S. to use up so much uranium for their own electricity and to have to depend on foreign countries for that feed. That was fine and dandy in the world that we are leaving now. I believe that we're in a paradigm shift where it's we're not just living the Trump era and then we're going to go back to the way things were before. My belief is that globalization as we have known it is not going to exist going forward, at least not for the next 20 years or so. I think it's been fractured. I think there's a lack of trust. I think the pendulum is swinging back. And so because of that, when you have a country that says, you know what, we are going to pour a lot of money into this and we're making permitting easier and faster, I mean, that's what we want in this industry. We want permitting to be faster. Like that would solve at least 25% of our issues. There are many issues, but at least 25%. I think permitting would really greatly improve it. And Fast 41 is just one of those things. But taking a look at it bigger picture. The administration being, pro-mining, I think, as a whole helps in every way possible.
Right, and we've talked about the setup and where we are in the cycle right now. And of course, we know every company is different, every person is different. But just for everyone in the room, when they're investing in uranium juniors, what is the time commitment? How long do you expect to spend in a stock when you get into it?
It truly depends on what that specific company is proposing to do. There are some companies that aren't here, they're not marketing, they're not doing much. Talk to management, reach out to them, write an email to them, call their offices. These guys are usually very approachable, and ask them, what are you doing in the next 12 months? Are you going to be exploring? What's the plan? Is there any news flow that I should expect? And they will let you know. If they fumble a little bit, then they're not probably going to be doing much. Make sure that they are cashed up to do what they intend on doing, and if not, then expect a little bit of a pullback in the stock price as they need to raise money in order to actually do the drilling that needs to be done. So a company that says, we're going to be drilling, we're going to be doing this, that, and the other, then I would dedicate a lot more time to a company that I know is going to be active, because any variation of expectation of what investors want versus what the company puts out can really drive the price either way. There are companies that I have invested in before. They literally came out and said, in not so many words, but my understanding was, we're going to do nothing. We're going to preserve cash until the market comes to us. I think that's fair. It's transparent, as long as they preserve the cash and actually do what they promised. And that has actually worked beautifully when they can be fiscally responsible. And so in that case, the homework was like nothing for several months. And then they started to raise money, and then I knew it was game on. And then I put on, a lot more time. But it varies. It varies a lot. It could be nothing to like, okay, I have to make sure I'm on it all the time. And just a quick word about how much you spend on due diligence and keeping up with the companies. I think more importantly than just the time spent is the right time. So if you spend many hours researching a company, they're about to publish results, you're not on your phone reading the press release the day of when they put out results and you miss it, it doesn't matter. Because if they come out with really disappointing results, stock gaps down, you can't sell, or you sell it at a much lower price. Then it bounces back, obviously. But not being available every trading day to check on the companies, that to me is more important than the actual hours that you spend following that company.
Okay, great answer. And Nick, I know you were keen to talk about companies that are pursuing new technologies, new strategies in the uranium sector. So what would you share on that note?
Yeah, one on each. I think you should be looking at Denison. I know we're going to talk about companies later, and that's perhaps not a small cap in some people's minds, but they started producing with their Sabre technology. It's surface access borehole, right, recovery, where they're proving that they can do that in the hard rock assets in Saskatchewan, and I think that's one of the reasons that stock has done so well. That's a technology that came out of Uranium back in the day, and you should look for that to be applied to more assets, potentially even ones that some small cap companies are exploring and trying to develop up there in the basin. And so that's a technology. On the strategy side, I think that proving that traditional assets that were thought previously to be only able to be accessed via traditional mining methods are now potentially able to be mined via ISR. So look for companies that are maybe pursuing that have a historic asset that maybe they have pounds in the ground, but that they're looking to extract it in a different way. And I think that could attract eyeballs as we get deeper into the cycle. And it allows them to tell sort of a different story, right? And start a little bit, start at the 50-yard line instead of all the way back at the other end zone. So that's the two things I basically wanted to talk about, yeah.
Well, and I think the time has gone so quickly. We'll switch over to the stock pick section of this as we're closing out. So it's a small cap uranium panel. Do you have any picks you could share with us?
Of course. Caveat, I own all these stocks, right? That's what I do. I help finance companies and I own them, and I write about my own cooking. I think it tastes good. That's sort of our whole mantra. Me and Gerardo, he's standing in the back there. The company we financed most recently is called North Shore Uranium, ticker NSU here in Canada. NSURF, NSURF on the OTC. They have what I was just talking about. They have an 11 million pound historic resource in New Mexico. The project's called Rio Puerco. It was built. The mine was built by Kerr McGee back in the 1970s. They sunk the shaft and everything, and they never mined a single pound. It's been sitting there ever since, and we just helped them raise a couple of $3 million, and they're going to start to prove that asset is ISR amenable. Back to Dewey Burdock and Azarga, the gentleman who got that project ready to sell. His name is Blake Steele. He's out of the Friedland camp. He was able to get that license in South Dakota back in good standing. He was able to get that asset sold to Encore, and everybody involved in that deal from soup to nuts made 7-8 times their money, right? And he's just come on as a director of North Shore Uranium. So one out here on the floor is Sky Harbor Resources. We've done a lot of work with Jordan Trimble over the years. They've got a ton of projects up in the basin that they're JV'd out, sort of a hybrid prospect generator. They've got 2 assets that they self-drill and self-explore, and they just struck a really good deal with Denison. Denison's sort of been doing that recently, right? You might have seen the COSA deal. That's another one you might look at. And what else? So back to Mr. Higgs here in the front row. So a gentleman that sold a company back in the 2000 run to Energy Fuels, I believe it was, called Uriners, and then listed URZ, which is eventually merged with Azarga and was sold to Encore. He's back with URZ3. It might not even be a uranium company because they have a couple of assets, but I think they're still on the hunt with a good one. But back to my original answer about people and share structure. The company's structured very well, has the same team that's done it before, and I assume that there's another rabbit in their hat.
Amazing. And I know we're pretty much out of time, but Fabi, your small cap uranium stock picks, please.
I'll be quick, but first, yes, thank you for Azarga. I was a shareholder. That was a sweet deal. We're all grateful. I am very biased. I'm on the board of this company, and I own a lot of shares, but Rush Rare Metals, we own 25% of the Copper Mountain project in Wyoming with Myriad Uranium, and we're merging, and every now and again, there's a little bit of an arbitrage if you buy Rush Rare Metals rather than Myriad. I think there's a lot of torque. Upside is absolutely massive. It will take a lot of money to prove it up, but the uranium is there.
Perfect. Thank you so much, both of you. This was super fun.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys.